Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. and it is Sunday. That means it is time for Sunday Club, which is a weekly Ruby on Rails live streaming show where we take a look at a kind of different aspect of building a Ruby on Rails application. And every week we work on the same application, which is where we are able to create users, and users can provide us with a YouTube channel ID. And then we will go and retrieve all the videos from that channel and then kind of build a web page that shows all of those videos and allows the users to edit them. And that's what we work on every week. And we also kind of use that as an opportunity to dig into different gems and just different approaches to how we might handle different things in Rails. And right at the start of every stream, as I do each week, we just want to dig into some follow-up. So I'm just checking the stream over there on the other screen. We want to dig into some follow-up, which we have loads of this week. Follow-up. Thing number one, thank you to everyone who came to the London Ruby Users Group talk. Some really good questions, and it was lovely to kind of meet a few people who've either watched the stream or have subscribed subsequently. So that was really amazing. And I hopefully encourage people to go and stream some of what they're working on so we can kind of keep more Ruby and Rails content right up there and available for people. So thank you for that. That's feedback number one. Feedback number two, I have updated the current -WIP branch on the GitHub repo. It is a complete mess, which you will be aware of if you watch this stream week to week. I have done no proper diligence, or it's missing loads of tests, it's missing loads of stuff. But a couple of people have commented in the YouTube comments, and I think it'd be kind of useful to actually have some of the code in there. So you can go to that branch on the GitHub repo if you need to kind of just see where the code is up to. None of it is good. So I only go and look at it if it's useful, and hopefully at some point in the future we'll come back and just kind of turn it into real code and real pull requests we have in the past, and move it into kind of like the proper code for and put it in master. In the master branch on that repo. So that's now up to date with where the repo is up to. Don't know if it has any value for anyone, but it's there. Third thing, which kind of moves us on to this week, is that we left last week's stream with a bug, or like a thing that I hadn't investigated, where last week we were looking at turbo streams, which went really well. And we had this idea of listening on the client, and then we were able to broadcast something on the server, and it was all kind of happening. And where we got to was that the model, we basically wanted to push an event from the model and have it represented in the user interface. And we had this kind of channel that it was listening on, and we thought we were broadcasting on that channel as well, but nothing was appearing in the UI. And that's where we left things last week. I'm not going to debug that issue right now at the start of this stream. It's just I kind of want to move on. I am interested in doing that, so we're going to come back once again to turbo streams. We've kind of dipped in twice. The first one was pretty much a failure. Second one, super mega success. So excited because things started appearing on the screen. And then next time we're going to try and get that working, where we have server-side events represented on the UI. So I think last week maybe we had a turbo stream going through the controller or something. I can't quite remember the details. So I'm going to come back to that. So but all that code is committed in that current -WIP branch if you want to try and take a look at it. More follow-up from last week. The issue that we did find that was affecting us with the Turbo Rails gem, thank you to Finian, who emailed me afterwards. It was an issue, as he suspected in the channel, in the chat last week. It was an issue with the Ruby version. So .then, I think, was the specific code, and we just opened the gem, swapped the code out for something that worked, and moved on. But he did some due diligence for us and found out that it actually was just because of the Ruby version. So I have actually updated the Ruby version of the app this morning, like literally just now, which is what triggered me to update the current WIP branch. So we're now on 2.7, I think. So that issue that we bumped into in the TurboStream gem has now gone away because the .then call then works. So thank you so much for the follow-up, and really glad to get that resolved. Now, loads of follow-up there. Let's move on to what we're going to talk about this week, and it is ActiveStorage. And a couple of reasons for this one, just to give us a break from Turbo for a week, and also that I think that we want the functionality that it offers. We want to allow people to upload images, and also because of my own self-interest, which is why we do loads of different topics on this channel. I have not yet managed to use ActiveStorage in a kind of production app or a real app, as it were, because the last couple of times I looked to transition to it, it didn't have a great story around its relationships with CDNs from my investigation, and I think that's now changed. I think the gem has moved on a lot, but I think it is something that we want to use, and I'm interested in, and I'm also interested in how it works with CDNs, and also how to migrate to it from what have I used in the past? Carrier Wave and Paper Trail are the two main ones that I have used. But I'm aware there's like Shrine and other ones out there. But so Paperclip, for example, has which was from Thoughtbot, has been deprecated. They're just like, hey, migrate to ActiveStorage. And we want to know if we can do that, but still get all the benefits of using Cloudflare or another CDN. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to jump in, I think. So let's go bring up our coding screen. Bear with me just a second. Okay, so what have we got on the screen here? So this is where we got from last week. So this is me pushing up to the current WIP branch. This is where we got to last week, if you remember. So we've got this these kind of turbo streams channel is transmitting and streaming from, and we've got these web notifications channel is they're all listening on different IDs. So we had this ID here, and we were also getting that ID represented in the model, I think, that it was trying to push events to, but we didn't manage to get any of that working. So what are we going to do this week? We are going to try and swap out these thumbnails on a channel. So at the moment, I am logged in as a user, but I think I can go to the control panel. Can I go to any channel? No, I have to go to the channel that I own, which I can't remember now, so I might need to make a new one. Or go digging around. But I think we can control panel videos, we can do control panel channels, and we can do something like channel.last really quick. Oops. See, let's just jump in the console and just grab the channel. So I just want to show you the editing interface that we're going to try and get ActiveStorage working. And if you've not watched these streams before, we have this kind of administration area called control panel. And that's where users can administrate the channels that they've created. Remember, the app is, we give it the ID of a YouTube channel, and we recreate that channel in our application. And then we have kind of views where just standard non-logged in users can go and view it as a little website for the channel, but then also a kind of control panel area where the owner of the channel can administrate it and make any changes and things like that. So they basically can edit the title, description, and the thumbnail of the video and have like a little website for the channel. So let's say we've got channel.last is 21. So let's see if we can administrate that. Great. Yep. So this is our if this is the first time you're watching one of these streams, we haven't added a user interface yet. So that's why that's why there's no user interface. So there are no channels for this video yet, and we can go and run the importer in a minute, or we can just log in as the user that owns a channel that already exists. I think channel 13 has videos, so we can go and find the user for that and hopefully sign in as them, although I think there were issues around that. Right, let's actually see if we can. Right, I'm just going to do 2 minutes of just a quick bit of admin then. So let's do let's go and grab a quick Google API key. So if you remember from a few streams ago, anyone who's been here before, we have a little job that can run that can go and populate our channels, and we just need, I'm just doing this on the other screen so you can't see this at the moment, and it is the Google API Developer Console. I just need a new API key because we recycle them every time. Just because we haven't bothered to set them up properly in environment variables and things like that. So I'm just going to go grab a new key. Okay, great. So here we can edit this key. Again, I'm just on another screen. We can regenerate that. Great. I'm just going to copy that and we're going to pop it into our code. Again, these get thrown away at the end of the stream, so we're not too bothered about showing it on the screen. And we can, I'm just going to remove this. This is the debugging stuff from last week. We don't need that right now because we're going to skip over all of that. And instead we can just go to our config initializers. And I think we have one for the YT gem. And we can just swap out this API key. And then I think we have a job somewhere that goes and populate channel videos job. Great. Okay, cool. So we can do this and we can give it channel.last. Which I think should have the correct IDs. Oh, no, sorry. We just need to restart our... Great. Okay, cool. So that's just populating. Again, this is all stuff from previous streams. So we just have a little job that runs that goes and gets all of the videos from YouTube. And so now if we go back to our channel 21, great, we have all of the videos there. And these are the videos from our this channel. And they don't have to be. We can go and get a different channel at another time. It's just when you set your channel up on the application, we ask for a channel ID, and I just happen to give it this channel ID. In fact, let's see what it looks like even to have another one. So let's go and get, we need a channel that doesn't have a huge number of videos or it'll take a million. Can we go and find, I'm just jumping over to the other screen again. Let's see where we've got a channel that doesn't have too many videos. The odds of me finding that are pretty low, aren't they? From just browsing around. Oh, well, if I Google something like Ruby on Rails, there are a few channels that only have a few videos, I think. So let's take a look at these ones. There's one here that's a tutorial channel. How many have they got? So it's got... Okay, it doesn't tell you how many videos a channel has, which is... Okay, that one's got like thousands. Okay, maybe this is a bad idea. Just... Yeah, this is definitely a bad idea. Everything it's showing me is obviously from popular channels with thousands of subscribers. Okay, that's fair enough. Let's ditch that because we know that our channel has a reasonable number of videos. Okay, let's ditch that for now. So we have our channel here. And we have our thumbnail. So when we click edit, oh, actually, this will be interesting. At the moment, it uses turbo frames, so it actually allows us to edit the title and the video of the description, sorry, of the video. And what we want to do is also allow it to edit this thumbnail here. And at the moment, we're using turbo frames for this. You'll notice that this just swaps out. Again, it looks rough as heck, but this could also take us to an edit view. At the moment, it's just using turbo frames to swap out the actual partial and show the edit view in there instead. But we just want to be able to edit this thumbnail. And at the moment, the thumbnail comes via just an attribute that we get from when we go to YouTube and ask for all of the videos. The thumbnail URL just comes down as one of those attributes. There's no notion of storing that file on our end. So if we actually look at the URL where this points to, it's just over here on the other screen. So let's bump that up. We're not even hosting that image at all. We don't go and retrieve it and create a local version or anything. We just point straight to the YouTube content. So let's swap that out. That's today's kind of mission. Okay, so ActiveStorage, just a kind of where I come to with this is I have looked at ActiveStorage before. I don't know if I've tried to install it. I can't remember. But I also come to it having used other gems for the same purpose. So I probably have a model of how they work and how they do things that may or may not be different to how ActiveStorage works. So I don't really want to go down into too much depth. What we usually do on this channel, if this is your first time, is kind of plow in blindly without reading enough of the documentation or watching any tutorial videos or anything, and then just fumble around. So might just take that approach here again. There are undoubtedly some amazing tutorials and things probably on Go Rails, Drifting Ruby, those types of services will have some amazing things. So I would highly recommend starting there. I'm just kind of skipping through the docs. So this is not the approach to take, but we haven't got a huge amount of time this morning because it's Mother's Day here in the UK and we've got a family Zoom later on. So let's see what we can get running up nice and quickly. Okay, so the first thing that we have is great. There's like an on-disk version for local testing of ActiveStorage. So that looks configurable. So where do you want to store things when you're testing them locally? We just want to put them on disk. And it looks like you can say where you want to store those things. It's great. And you can create a new folder for them called storage. And then on production, I see this. So this is creating environments where you're going to store stuff. So you've got local, test, and then Amazon. And presumably you can have multiple ones of these. You could presumably have multiple different types of Amazon one. Tell ActiveStorage which service to use by setting application convert ActiveStorage service. Great. Because each environment will likely use a different service, it's recommended to do this on a per environment basis. So what does that mean? It means that like for your local development environment, you're probably going to have local. For test, you'd probably have test. And for production, you'd probably have some cloud service or multiple. Great. Okay. That all is making sense. Again, I'm moving through quite quickly. Disk service, S3 service. So the fact that these all kind of come pre-configured is good. Back a while ago, there were you'd often have different gems. The ones that I've used kind of approach that differently as to how you define like what you need for the Amazon buckets or Google Cloud or something like that. So optionally provide client and upload options. Okay. I don't think we're going to get, like I said, because we're a bit tight on time this morning, I'm not sure we're going to get time to actually create an S3 bucket or something. So we might just try and get this working locally. We'll see what we do with time. So DigitalOcean. Okay, these are all just different service providers. So if you're using if you're using Google, for example, a bunch of stuff there. You can keep multiple services in sync by defining a mirror service. A mirror service replicates uploads and deletes across two or more subordinate services. Awesome. A mirror service is intended to be used temporarily during a migration between services in production. You can start mirroring to a new service, copy pre-existing files from the old service to the new, then go all in on the new service. Mirroring is not atomic. It is possible for an upload to succeed on the primary service and fail on any of the subordinate services. Before going all in on the new service, verify that all files have been copied. Okay. Yep, so as you said earlier, you can define multiple, so there's like 2 S3 types, for example. And then I see, and then you can define one called production. It's a mirror service rather than an S3 service, and it has primary and then a list of mirrors. Okay, this is making sense so far. I think I'm probably bringing a lot of context into this from those other gems and having done this before. So if you're looking for that more where to completely get started, I think maybe go to those more tutorial based stuff before we go. We're just going to kind of diving in at a fairly kind of having an understanding of roughly what those services do, like S3 and Google Cloud and things like that. By default, ActiveStorage assumes private access to services. This means generating signed single-use URLs for blobs. If you'd rather make blobs publicly accessible, specify public true in your app's config storage. Okay. And again, they've got one private and one public as an example. Make sure your buckets are properly configured for public access. See docs on how to enable public read permissions for Amazon. In other words, when converting an existing application to use public true, make sure to update every individual file in the bucket to be publicly readable before switching over. Okay. So all of that information was about storage and actually getting the file in the service. Okay. Then how does the gem actually work? Attaching file to records. The has one attached macro sets up a one-to-one mapping between records and files. Each record can have one file attached to it. For example, suppose your application has a user model. If you want each user to have an avatar, define the user model like this. You can create a user with an avatar. Okay, so you say this has an avatar. That's the code that we're looking to do. So we'll be looking to do form.file field thumbnail. Yep, and then just allow that to be edited in the params. Here we go. So we then call avatar.attach to attach an avatar to an existing user. So we can create it through there. That will go through user.avatar.attach. Call avatar.attach to determine whether a particular user has an avatar. So are these separate instructions? So in this controller code, I'm assuming that because avatar is a param within user, would that not attach it by default? Do I still need to do this? I can't imagine so. I think this is separate. Attach an avatar to an oh yeah, okay. Params. Okay, you can look at that. In some cases, you might want to override a default service for a specific attachment. Okay, cool. So that's like you can have some of them on S3, but you might keep your avatars on Google for some reason or whatever, or in a different S3 region. Cool. Okay. And then you get the variants here. So this is where my interest kind of kicks in. So my memory of this is that when defining variants for an ActiveStorage file, they are generated then on the fly when the file is retrieved, rather than at the time, I think on the app I was working on, we were using Paperclip, which generated multiple versions on processing. It didn't do it on upload. So we'd basically upload one file. We would then tell Paperclip to go and make multiple ones. So if we had like a thumbnail that was 100 by 100, we would go and generate that and store that. So there, we could define how it was stored in S3. And we would go through and make a bunch. If we then wanted any on the fly, we could then use whatever we wanted. We could use a third-party service like ImageX or something like that and call that over the original one. But we had this kind of set of pre-made thumbnails. And I think that was a big shift in terms of the resource being used, because if you generate the variant, so like a thumbnail, so you have a large original file and then you create a thumbnail that represents the user, if you have to store both, you're increasing storage. Whereas if you generate that 100 by 100 only when you need it, you can then treat that as like an ephemeral file. Maybe you cache it and then just destroy the cache after a while or something like that. So that's my memory of what ActiveStorage was doing. It was generating those on the fly when they were needed. But I think, again, I could be way off here, but I think my memory is that was when the aspect of the CDN kind of kicked in, is that because it was always generating them on the fly. We weren't then caching them in the CDN. Maybe has many attached. So has many attached macro sets up one-to-many relationship between records and files. Each record could have many files attached to it. So yep, same as before. You can create a message with images. Images.attach. Okay, so that's all the same stuff, just with many attaching file IO objects. Yeah, so downloaded from a user submitted URL. One memory I have of Paperclip is that processing images from a user submitted URL was something you ended up having to do yourself. I think it was like there was a security issue when they turned it off. And so you then had to either explicitly turn it back on or handle it yourself. I can't remember what we ended up doing, but yeah, there was an issue with Paperclip of downloading from a URL at all, not just a user submitted one. Because I think the way that bumped into us is we were using a third-party service for the uploader, and so we would actually get a URL from the uploader service, like FileStack or Upload Care or one of those other ones. You get a URL from them, and we were trying to process from that URL. So it wasn't user generated as such; it was generated by the third party, but it still bumped into Paperclip turning that off by default. Okay, so when it's possible, define a content type as well. Okay, so this is all stuff that's familiar. So again, I think Paperclip mandated that you had to have a content type for security and safety reasons, I think. Removing files, linking to files. Okay. Downloading files, analyzing files. Okay, so where I'm displaying them. Okay, so here is what I think I'm interested in. ActiveStorage supports representing a variety of files. You can call representation on an attachment to display an image variant or a preview of a video or PDF. Before calling representation, check if the attachment can be represented by calling representable. Some file formats can't be previewed by ActiveStorage out the box, e.g. Word documents. If representable returns false, you may want to link to the file instead. Okay, great. That's like a huge win in terms of what it provides for you, like knowing whether you can do any of that stuff. And if that's all happening in the box, that's great. So if the file is representable, show a representation of it. So resize to limit. Okay, so this is this idea of generating this on the fly. And if it's not representable, just link to the actual file itself. Okay, cool. Internally, representation calls variant for images and preview for previewable files. You can also call these methods directly. Okay, so if you knew it was going to be an image, you could just call variant. There. Transforming images. Transforming images allows you to display the image at your choice of dimensions. To enable variants, add the image processing gem to your file. Interesting. Okay. So you actually have to have a separate gem to do the image processing to enable variants. To create a variant of your image, call variant on the attachment. You can pass any transformation supported by the variant processor to the method. When the browser hits the variant URL, ActiveStorage will lazily transform the original blob into the specified format and redirect to its new service location. The default processor for ActiveStorage is Minimagic, but you can also use VIPS to switch to VIPS or VIPS. Add the following to config application. Okay, great. Previewing files. That's kind of cool. I actually don't know if I knew that it did previewing PDFs out of the box. I wonder what kind of resource that takes. Extracting PDF requires third-party applications. So one for videos and this for PDFs. These libraries are not provided by Rails. You must install them. So if you're using something like Heroku, I guess perhaps these aren't in the stack. You might need to use a build pack or something like that if those aren't options. Okay, so then the uploading itself. So like I said, my experience of this is having used loads of different ways. So either uploading directly, so just having a simple browser native file upload box. But on services like Azure Heroku is a good example, because huge files, you'll often get the actual request timeout. I think if you're just trying to pass it into their server because they have some sort of maximum timeout of keeping I can't remember if it's the connection or something dies. There's some sort of timeout that dies for large files. So there you can do, well, you have lots of different options, but I've certainly done one where we built basically a direct to S3 uploader. So you upload to S3 and then that triggers the processing of that image in the background and then tells Rails when it's done. So you basically just say, okay, well, I'm going to upload this file. That happens, and all you store is the fact that it's been uploaded, but you don't actually bother to try and do anything with it until it's been processed. Also, as I mentioned, there are then another version of that is using a third party for that. So something like FileStack. I think UploadCare is one. Cloudinary, I think. Like a bunch of these other ones where basically you pump your images into a third party, and then they will tell you, the third party can tell you whatever you want about it. So maybe they'll pass you back a webhook when it's done, or like in the client side JavaScript library that they have, maybe they'll just pass you the URL there when it's done. And they also will handle things like if you want to have Dropbox or Google Drive and those types of things, rather than just having that native browse button, they'll often have a JavaScript wrapper there, and you can push all that stuff up. Now, none of those are like direct uploads. A lot of them are often going off to either S3 and then being processed differently, or to that third-party service or something like that. So having an understanding of how of the options that are available there can be really useful if you are like building an app and looking for it to scale, or you're worried about the size of them if they're huge files and things like that. There's just got loads of options, loads of third-party services, and also you can just handle it all natively. And let's dive into how ActiveStorage does that as well. So ActiveStorage, with its included JavaScript layer, supports uploading directly from the client to the cloud. Great. So add direct upload true. If you aren't using a form builder, configure the cause on the third-party storage. That's it. Uploads begin upon form submission. So with the direct form uploads and things like that, a lot of the user experience stuff that I have bumped into with that is like the progress bars and all the user experience and like the user interface of what is happening around the direct upload for any kind of file of any given size. So often it's like we want to know what the progress is, or maybe it's multiples and things like that. So again, it'd be interesting to see what we can whether I don't know when it says that the ActiveStorage is included. I'm assuming that's just a native browse box, and you just click save, and then it just waits and waits until the file is uploaded. Which users generally just get bored and click off, and then it doesn't work. So this is all the core stuff. To make direct uploads to a third-party service work, you'll need to configure the service to allow cross-origin requests from your app. So this is where, so this is always where loads of time seems to get burned of having these things, getting these things set up correctly to work, especially in S3, because I find the S3 console just, I like how they keep kind of semi-redesigning it as if they're like, hey, we made it make sense now. And I don't know, maybe I'm on my own there, but like, I don't find it easy to use whatsoever. And then they're like, oh, I'll just use the API instead. And I find that equally non-friendly. Like, oh yeah, you can set all of the cause rules and everything you need just via API. It's like, that's more confusing. Sorry, just go on. So direct upload JavaScript events. Okay, great. So these are the events. So this is something like where if you wanted to build a progress bar or something like that, you could hook into these events. Great. Yep. So as request to store files progress, so you can build a UI using these events. Okay, that's great. There are off-the-shelf stuff. I'd be really surprised if there isn't off-the-shelf stuff for ActiveStorage, but there are definitely off-the-shelf ones in like in either vanilla JavaScript or just in other frameworks that you could go and look at and get inspiration from. So basically, all you're looking at is saying, right, for this direct file upload, for this file uploader field, for this file upload field, go and look at these events, and when they fire, do something in the UI. And usually that's like work out how many uploads there are, and then the total file size of those, divide that by where is the progress up to. Great. Okay, well, that's 20% of the total. Show the bar at 20% width or something like that. So you can use these events to show the progress of an upload. Oh, okay, amazing. Oh, okay, yeah, cool. So that's exactly, look at that. It's even in the docs, like I'm jumping right ahead, but it's right here. So yeah, you can see these are just event listeners for these, and you can see that they're like, hey, this file started, great. Okay, well, we now know that there's been some progress made. or there's like something went wrong, or it's, hey, it's done. And so you can then decide what to do. And this one is just color. Well, if you watch it, it's just changing the color of the button as it goes along. Great. And then the next one, and then the next one. So yep, that's, I mean, they've provided the code for you. So everything I said earlier is, no, you can just use that one. But again, you can grab them and do whatever you want with them if you want to do something more fancy. Integrating with libraries or frameworks, okay. If you want to use the direct upload feature from a JavaScript framework, or you want to integrate custom drag and drop solutions, you can use the direct upload class for this purpose. Upon receiving a file from your library of choice, instantiate a direct upload and call its create method. Create takes a callback to invoke when the upload's complete. Okay, cool. So this is, again, everyone who writes the docs for Rails is way ahead of me here. So these kind of cool custom solutions. Yeah, so a drop zone. Oh, I haven't used drop zone, but I've heard things about it. Okay, so drop zone, I think, is like an open source version of the type of user interface that like FileStack or UploadCare provide for you, as I understand it. So on drop would be when you say, hey, I've dragged a file over here and I've dropped it. We can create an array of those files, and then for each one do the upload, which goes and creates the upload from this direct upload class. Loads of stuff in there, which hides the actual input. Yep, this is stuff. If you're going to build these from scratch, this is all stuff that you'll need to get. So you hide the kind of the form field because you don't need that anymore, and then you'll show your progress or something. Like that. I think that's actually. Oh, that's actually that's actually creating the hidden field for when the form is submitted, I think. Yeah. Okay, cool. If you need to check the progress of the file upload, you can pass a third parameter. Okay, so sorry, for progress, you'd pass something else in. Okay, fine. During the upload, direct upload will call the object's direct upload will store file with XHR method. You can then bind your own progress handle on the XHR. Okay, cool. Right, I'm kind of skimming over this quite quickly because I want to try and get it installed. And like I said, I haven't got a huge amount of time this morning. But this is all amazing. So like this all out of the box stuff that you get, it's super helpful. Discarding files stored during system tests. Okay, that's really specific. Discarding files during implementing support from other cloud services. Purging unattached. Here we go. There are cases where a file is uploaded but never attached to a record. This can happen when using direct uploads. You can query for unattached records using the unattached scope. Below is an example of a custom rake task. Interesting. The query generated by ActiveStorage blob unattached can be slow and potentially disruptive on applications with larger databases. Okay, that has all been super useful. Nothing in there about CDNs, interestingly, which is kind of what I was looking for. Let's go and set it up. Like let's do this thing. Sure, let's do the thing. They are the same file. Just go to the GitHub repo. Okay, so compared to other storage solutions. Okay, a key difference to how ActiveStorage works compared to other attachment solutions in Rails is through the use of built-in blob and attachment models. This means existing application models do not need to be modified with additional columns to associate with files. ActiveStorage uses polymorphic associations via the attachment join model, which then connects to the actual blob. So this is actually how I ended up working on an app anyway that we were working on. So basically for Paperclip, when you wanted to add a new file, so let's say you had a user and you wanted to store a profile, you would run a migration to add new columns to that table. And those columns would store the information about that specific file. So like profile photo or avatar or something like that. When we kind of went over the life cycle of that app, we ended up with so many things that didn't, like you just needed to add new files all the time. We actually ended up with this idea where we had, I think we called it like media attachment of file file media. I don't know, we gave it some sort of weird, stupid name, and basically said, well, we'll just treat everything like a we'll treat all uploads as a model, as an instance of a model, and then just have the association rather than doing what Paperclip was asking, which was to add the columns each time. And you basically end up with just making it easier for yourself to kind of add and remove those associations later. Whereas if you have to do them on a migration and actually add the columns, you're really tying yourself to that to that structure, and it becomes a lot heavier to move. So yeah, strangely, we had actually ended up on that project in this kind of world where we have this idea of like, this is just an attachment model. And so everything is an attachment, presumably like all of the ActiveStorage things, you just end up with one massive table with everything in it, which on most applications is not going to be that painful. If you're working at really high volume, then that's a thing you need to care about. Blob models store attachment metadata, file name, content type, etc., and their identifier key in the storage service. Blob models do not store the actual binary data. They are intended to be immutable in spirit. I love immutable in spirit, and they're not immutable. They're really in spirit, just thinking about being immutable. One file, one blob. You can associate the same blob with multiple application models as well. Okay, so like you could have that avatar could be their avatar, and also user dot photo or something. Like, I don't know. If you wanted to do transformations of a given blob, the idea is that you'll simply create a new one rather than attempt to mutate the existing one. Though of course you can delete the previous versions later if you don't need it. Okay. Installation. Run bin Rails ActiveStorage install to copy over ActiveStorage migrations. Note, if the task cannot be found, verify that require ActiveStorage engine is present in application RB. Okay, let's go and take a look. So is this, I don't know what version of, can't remember what version of Rails we installed. So do we have, like, did this come for free with our Rails installation? Let's give this a try. So bin run Rails ActiveStorage install. So let's do that in our terminal. Let's just bump the font size up a little bit. Great. Okay. So we didn't have to install a gem or anything. So because our version of Rails is is new enough, ActiveStorage already exists. So we have this new. Oh no, that's from where they're copied over from. So let's go and take a look at what new files we have. So this is the structure we were just looking at. So, or we were just talking about. So rather than when we're trying to add files, we're not adding we're not adding columns to our videos table, because that's, even though that's where we want to store the actual result, we want to store the thumbnail on the video. We don't really care about that. We're abstracting that out to ActiveStorage blobs and ActiveStorage attachments. So the ActiveStorage blobs is key, file name, content type, metadata, byte size, checksum, and created at. Okay. And the ActiveStorage attachment is the name, the record, which is the thing to which you are attaching it, the blob, which is this, when it references blob, how does that know? How does that know? Oh, because it's because it's blob. Interesting. How does it know that that's this? Because won't this be ActiveStorage blobs rather than blob? Okay, maybe I'm being stupid. Oh, there. T foreign key ActiveStorage blobs column blob ID. Okay, it's right there. Okay, cool. So let's just run this, I guess. Is that right? Well, let's go and be a bit more diligent and actually read through this. So run this, blah, blah, blah. So example. Is that it? If we just run this migration, is everything else just there? Do we have to go through and put in our own, the other files we looked at earlier, like the actual places where it's stored? Okay, well, so this, because it's already there in our Rails, let's just run this. So let's see, bin Rails, and great. Oh, sorry, DB, DB migrate. Great. Okay, cool. So that has now happened. And so we just jump back over to here. The next thing it jumps into is adding an attachment. So we can say has one attached avatar. So let's see if we go over to our video model. So you say has paper trail, and we can say has one attached. And we can say, what do we actually have in here? Is thumbnail. I'm just going to open a console and take a look at what we've got on video on the video model at the moment. So we do video new. Okay, so we have thumbnail URL. So this is a perfect example of not really, when you're doing your initial design, not really thinking, you're not always able to think far enough ahead. And in this case, we probably should have seen this coming, but we put thumbnail underscore URL. But what we'll actually potentially end up with is the YouTube thumbnail URL and the local thumbnail URL, and want to decide which one to use. So we could stick with thumbnail URL and overwrite it if we wanted to. So at the moment that is set from the YouTube value when we do the import. So we could say, well, let's overwrite it when the user uploads one. We probably don't want to do that, but although we do have this kind of, we've got paper trail, so we could, when we destroyed the associated attachment, we could actually kind of reach back and grab the YouTube one from the previous version. That seems non-optimal. Like, why rely on the versioning system there? You could just store them both. So we could have two fields, like YouTube thumbnail URL and local thumbnail URL, or something like that, or like uploaded thumbnail URL, whatever we decide to call it. And you could then code in some sort of preference. You could say, well, if the local one exists, use that, and if not, use the YouTube one. And or you could even have three fields if you really wanted to. You could have the YouTube one, you could have the local one, and then you could have like the one that the field that actually gets read, and move it that way. Don't know why I'd really bother doing that one, but let's add a let's call this one local thumbnail. Local is an awful custom, maybe. Yeah, let's say custom thumbnail, and then the other one could be the YouTube thumbnail, for example. Because again, here we're just storing the URL that's available via the again that data from YouTube when we do the import. But you could say, well, we might not want to use that. We might want to actually import that file when we're doing the import from YouTube, so that we're not consistently reaching out to their API. But also, you might want to do something like watermark it. It might be a performance issue where maybe YouTube is unlikely because they're probably working at a higher scale than you are, but maybe it's taking ages to come back, and you want to cache them, or you want to do something fancy on your side and don't want to have to rely on always grabbing it from their server. So although at the moment thumbnail URL is a URL that reaches out to a third-party service, it doesn't have to be. It could be another. We could, for example, have this. So it could be has one attached file custom thumbnail and one attached file YouTube thumbnail, and we would populate the YouTube thumbnail during that import, and then the custom one would be what the user would upload. I'm just going to stick with the custom one for now. A custom, again, isn't a great word, but I'm not going to delve into the wording of stuff right now. So I think just by adding that, if we if we just restart this, do we suddenly end up then with video.last. Do we end up with this? Yes, great, okay. So, and then, but we have the record, so we should have custom thumbnail dot, oh, what did it give us? Present? False. Okay, yep, because we haven't uploaded anything. So just because, so we haven't had to put a gem in because ActiveStorage is available in Rails. So that this has one attached is just working for us. It's not, if we were to just write that, like if a gem had asked us to put something like, you know, like has paper trail, for example, if we had that without the paper trail gem, that would fail. But then we install the paper trail gem beforehand, and then we're able to add that, and it works. Has one attached. We already had the code for ActiveStorage, so that's why it's working without us needing to add a gem explicitly as part of this video. So video to last custom thumbnail. Great. Okay, so that means that everything is working, and we can. Oh, okay. So this is we can use a local file if we want to just do it from the console. Should we try that? Let's go and find a JPEG, I guess. Let's just follow the docs through. So we just need a ice cream sundae images. Let's have this one. Looks pretty cool. Can I just drag that to my desktop? Unknown.jpg. Great. Okay. Well, let's call it, let's at least give it a proper name. Sunday.jpg, it's a bit small. So how big is that picture? Oh, it's pretty tiny. It doesn't matter, we don't need it to be large right now. So in here we can do, let's pop that in the Sunday Club repo, and then I think we can just access it there. So if we, again, I'm just doing this quickly just to play around this. We wouldn't normally do any of this stuff, but I'm just testing the docs that it's giving us. So we can chuck this in here. We've got sunday.jpg. So then I think from the console, we can lift this. So rather than user.avatar attached, let's lift the whole line and edit it in the terminal. Okay, so we have got, oh, okay, it doesn't like that at all. Video.last.custom thumbnail.attach. And I don't know where this is relative to. Let's see if it's relative to this directory. Hold open sunday.jpg. It's got an E in it this time. File name sunday.jpg, and the content type is image.jpg. So let's see if that does anything. And there is a typo in the very first word, which is not helpful. Something happened. Amazing. I don't know what happened. Okay, so now if we do video.last.custom thumbnail.present, you see it's now true. It was false previously. And I think the default is that it now goes into storage. Okay, so we've got something in here. So what is that file? That's just a binary blob of some sort. Okay, cool. And so if we then say, and we had code from previously to show that. So let's say, so we've now got user.avatar again. We're using video.custom thumbnail attached. So we use present, actually. That's a bad example. You can press Control. I do super appreciate the Control A thing. Yeah, and also for you can alt click for specific locations as well. I am not diligent enough to remember stuff like that when I'm trying to type. Okay, so we've got present at the moment. Hello, by the way. Thank you for commenting in the chat on Twitch today. So video.last.custom thumbnail.attached, I think it just said. Great. I wonder if there's a difference between present and attached. I don't know. I guess not. It's just saying, does the user have an avatar? Generate a permanent URL for the blob that points to the application. Upon... Oh, hello. I mentioned Elrug at the start. You told me you're making breakfast. Oh, well, I hope you have a lovely breakfast. I haven't even had mine yet because I woke up a little late. But hello, and I super appreciate everyone coming to Elrug, and happy to keep you company talking about ActiveStorage while you're having breakfast. Yeah, hello. So let's see what URL4 does, because we've got URL4, but it's local. So I'm interested in that. What do we get back from URL4 video.last.custom thumbnail? Oh, okay. So we actually, okay, right. We actually need the URL helper. Okay, that makes total sense. So we need the URL helpers to have it in the... the redirection has an HTTP expiration. So this, okay, generate a permanent URL for the blob that points to the application. Upon access, a redirect to the actual service endpoint is returned. Right. Okay. So this is the idea where you generate an app-based URL, but that points you to like S3 or to Google Cloud or something like that. This indirection decouples the public URL from the actual one and allows, for example, mirroring attachments in different services for high availability. The redirection has an HTTP expiration of 5 minutes. So my understanding is that type of behavior is where there was initial stuff around the CDNs working. So I'm interested to see if we can get to that. So this is working. We have a file. That's all good. Great. Let's try and show it. Let's try and see our picture of an ice cream sundae. So let's go to our very beautiful partial that we have for showing these videos. Ugh, everything is not doing any UI work is really reaching awful levels. Where is that? When we do channel.show, what are we actually showing? Oh, we don't have a partial for it. Okay, great. We just spit them out. Okay, so let's chuck these in as well. And can we just do URL4? Is that an option? So URL4, it would be video.custom thumbnail. And if we just don't pass it any variants or anything, is that all we need for that? So then if we refresh this... Oh, I also... Wait, did we check which video we're at? Which video? I just did video.last. I didn't even think... okay, that's stupid, isn't it? Okay, so what video is this one? The one at the top would be more useful, wouldn't it? That's video 173. So let's make it that one. So let's say video is video.find173. Great. And then we're going to attach this to video. Just that little variable we just made. It's going to run whatever it ran last time. And then we can refresh this. And we don't got nothing spitting out underneath there. URL4 video.custom thumbnail. Wait, what? Oh, am I clicking? Oh, I've actually clicked through to the video. Oh, I see. When you click on that, you get through to... Ooh, I'd forgotten about that. Okay, fine. Oh, am I in control? Oh, come on, Max. I'm in the control panel. I'm in the wrong view. So if you remember me saying earlier, we have the channels show is different to the control panel channels show. So one is one that a user would see when they're browsing around channels. And then we have this namespace of control panel, and that's where you administrate things. And for now, they look identical because neither of them has a user interface. So we actually do have a video partial here, which makes way more sense in the control panel side. So we can take the same code, it's identical. And we can say, right, we want to add this custom thumbnail. So let's try and refresh this now. But we do think that it's this video that we've added the thumbnail for. Great. Okay, to model dedicated to attachment, but attachment is nil. Okay, so video dot custom thumbnail dot attached is true. Oh, and it's for the others that that's probably it. That error is arriving. So we can just add a quick messy thing around here. We can just say, well, if there's one attached, then show it, and if there isn't, then don't bother. So we're just only showing, we're only trying to show that that video, sorry, that thumbnail if it's there. So if we refresh this now, great. Okay, so here is our path. Rails, ActiveStorage, blobs, blah, 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 /JPEG. So then if we put that in, oh, we can put it in the same code as the line above. And instead of video.thumbnail URL, we can put that in there. Oops, missed a bit. We can put that in there. Oops, and then we can do this. Incredible. Right. Oh man, this looks a total mess, but it works. This is so the theory of what we're trying to describe here is that we've added ActiveStorage. We've added the models that we need via a migration. We have added that association to our model. So the video now has this association to an ActiveStorage attachment called custom thumbnail. We've then said, well, does this work? And again, the only one that we've got set up is local. So it is like, did it call it local? I think a drive, or disk it called it earlier. So again, we didn't configure that, but we could, if we wanted to, we could go into our development.rb and say, well, no, I want you to store ones for development in this S3 drive or something like that. Didn't have to set any of that up. The default is in the right place. And just in the console, we've gone through and grabbed a quick JPEG file and called attach directly from the console to this instance of video. And that worked. And that means that we're then able to call if video.customThumbnail.attached and show it in the user interface. So what we can now do is we could say, well, if the custom thumbnail is attached, then show it. If it's not, add an else clause in there, then show the one that we've got from YouTube. And again, we're just using the thumbnail URL that comes as part of our YouTube import process, but we could have stored that locally or we could have done whatever we wanted. So that means that we now won't get that error, but we will only see one image. Whereas here at the moment, we see two. Let's just refresh that. Now we know that we've got this ice cream picture for our first video, but the others have the correct thumbnail from YouTube. Great. So that works excellently. So what we really care about now is our next step is uploading, which I kind of care a little bit less about. What I am interested in, as I mentioned at the start, I'm interested in like proxying. Is there any mention here of CDNs? Okay, so proxying mentions CDNs. Optionally, files can be proxied instead. This means that your application servers will download file data from the storage service in response to requests. This can be useful for serving files from a CDN. So when it says your application servers will download file data, is that instead of the redirect, I'm assuming? As we said, at the moment, it will give you a URL to your app. So it'll be, Sunday Club slash whatever we had earlier, slash images, blah, 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 .jpeg, and then that would redirect to something S3 dot whatever, and then some hash that it's generated. But you would see in your browser console, you would see the redirect. You would see a 302, I guess, which one's permanent, 302? A 30x redirect to to the service. Proxying presumably means that that's not what happens, and you can then useful for serving files from a CDN. Explicitly proxy attachments using the Rails storage proxy path and URL route helpers. So you can add that on a per image basis, or configure ActiveStorage to use proxying by default. Rails.application config ActiveStorage resolve model to root Rails storage proxy. Interesting. Okay, so let's say we want to do Rails ActiveStorage Cloudflare. So let's take a look at, I'm just going to jump to this. I'm just going to jump to this one. My Google Sense says that this one is more of a, if your uploads are meant to be, let me bump this font size up. If your uploads are meant to be public, and you were thinking of serving them directly through the CDN sitting in front of you, you'll soon notice a problem. ActiveStorage URLs are always built to go through your Rails app. The controller is responsible. Yet this is what we just said. The controller is responsible for setting the cache headers and redirecting to the bucket URL. Your Rails app will be the first point of contact, even if it's just to retrieve the bucket URL. On top of that, there's no place to specify a CDN host. So I wonder how out of date some of this stuff is before that proxy stuff went in. Fortunately, there is a way to get around this problem. In order to translate stored files into URLs, Rails provides the URL helper Rails blob URL, which basically resolves to this ActiveStorage blobs controller. We'd like to, okay, so this is not mention anything to do with that. Does it have a date on? That does not have a date on it either. Okay, let's go back to Google, I think. Oh, these are from 7 months ago. Okay. Great tutorial. The direct route helper works great for my production environment. I use ActiveStorage with S3 and Cloudflare. Okay, so people talking about the specifics here. Worth mentioning that with Rails 6.1 and track variants, the variants can now be either ActiveStorage variant or ActiveStorage variant with record. Okay, cool. So we should update that. Okay, so this does seem up to date, but doesn't mention the proxy thing at all. So this is actually setting up. Okay, so that's if you've got your like user generated content.sundayclub.whatever, you only care about the bit that it generates when it does the redirect. You can set that as the path. Okay. So this is okay. Looks like it started here. Discuss ActiveStorage add option for proxying files to allow CDN caching. That is amazing. Let me grab this URL from the chat. Thank you so much for posting that. So is it gonna let me grab this from Streamlabs? Yes, it is. Amazing. Okay. Okay, it has grabbed the whole thing. So this is from 2018. So this is the ActiveStorage should give the sorry, let me bump this font size up as well. So this is from 2018. ActiveStorage should give the user the option to proxy files. This would allow files to be cached by a CDN. Something along the lines of this is what I'm proposing, and then this is the specifics. Okay, so it actually does just like fully pass it. Do you lose? Okay, so users looking for image loading with a CDN can set this up by setting. I just threw this together for a project I'm working on. I'd be happy to clean up. So I had seen, so 2018, yeah, this is kind of around the time that I would have been looking. So this is the kind of thing I was interested in. So that I had seen people put together their own solutions. So, okay, so +1 for supporting publicly available files. We're almost certainly going to do this at some point. We needn't tie it to proxying downloads though. For larger apps, it's no more desirable to take on the substantial cost of proxying for public files. In more than for private ones, you can put a CDN in front of a public S3 or GCS bucket. Okay, so this is where the conversation starts. I'm okay with adding proxy support in general. Global setting seems less than ideal. Okay, exciting. So then this goes into here. Okay, so this is the detailed. I'm just aware of our time today. I'm totally not going to get much more time to this. So this is the details of what I really wanted to dig into. So we have something working. Maybe next week we could we could actually set an S3 bucket and a Cloudflare file version up. Maybe. So, oh, okay. Yeah, definitely not going to get a chance. Oh my God, there are 243. Okay, I'm definitely not going to get a chance to read all of that. I am going to click load more though, just to see what happens. Okay, so. Oh, look, the person working had a chart. This PR was lasting so long. Humans were created as part of this pull request. Okay, so if you're a Cloudflare user, simply setting delivery method proxy at the model is all that's needed to take advantage of the speed improvement. Okay, so this really does seem to be. Okay, so if this really is the solution and this is a solved problem, I'm interested to see like how come people are still doing stuff like this as of a few months ago? Is this just not? Is it not meeting all of the needs, or is this just like around variants, for example? Or is it just a missed a blog post that misses out that there's a native version available? So the trouble is, because I don't have a working CDN, I can't really put if we would just write the proxy at the end of the attachment on the model, it would just break. It would be like, there was no way to go and get it. Okay, so let's put, is this stuff right at the end of this? Going back. Ooh, okay, so here we go. This is really recent. So heads up for other people on Cloudflare who cannot get this to work. Apparently you can only have it ignore cookies on the $200 a month business plan or higher. The mentioned workaround that disable the session for relevant controls. Oh, okay, this really gets into details. The cookies header makes the asset uncacheable. That's Cloudflare specific behavior. A lot of CDNs will cache assets regardless of cookies. Cloudflare can also be configured to cache without a cookie present. Also, Cloudflare are getting rid of, if that's the CFUID cookie, that's going away like in a couple of months. So I wonder if this problem is going away as well. Just having read 3 lines of that, like I'm not sure if that's the same cookie or if they pass one per file. Oh, okay, this is really interesting and what I wanted to dig into, but I'm not sure how useful it is without having some like examples of us to play with. Okay, so looks like there's some potential Cloudflare stuff to dig into. Okay, let's circle back for a second then. So I've got my answer there, which is that I need to dig into more on the CDN stuff. Let's just see if we can answer the question around having this in a turbo frame, but still being able to upload. So let's see if we can add into this form partial here. If we can add a file that now will attach to our new attachment and see if, I'm assuming everything just works because it's turbo frames, but let's see what we get. So this is we were looking at our video partial, and then we have in control panel, we had this video form, which if you remember is wrapped in this turbo frame, and that's how it's able to then just appear in line rather than having to do a full page reload. And what we should be able to do, according to those early docs that we looked at here, is f dot file field, I think it had. File field images multiple true, so we can do file field custom thumbnail, and I don't think we need to give it any CSS classes, and then we need to allow it in the controller somewhere, so that will be in our control panel videos controller, and there'll be some params that we allow. At the moment is title and description, and now we're going to add custom thumbnail in there as well. So that will just allow that through. And I'm hoping that because it's just disk as the type, it should quote unquote just work. So let's refresh the channel in the control panel. Let's add edit. And now we have our file. So let's put our, oh, well, let's not do, oh, damn it. Let's not do our first one because we know that already works. So let's do our, that's the first one there. Let's do our second one here. And then we can just drop this onto there. That totally has not worked. So where's desktop? Sunday. Great, okay. So then where's our server in another window? Let's see what happens in here. Let's click update video. Wow, okay. Yeah, works great out of the box. I mean, you kind of would have hoped that because they're both built into they're kind of like Railsy things, but that's amazing. So you can now so we can now edit these thumbnails without leaving this page. So and again, like if the file upload size was always going to be small, we don't need to worry about really super long hangs and waiting, forcing the user to wait there. Although I guess if we did all the stuff that if we did need to upload large files, the stuff that we saw earlier around the hooks that the file uploader gives us, if you want to do that, you could, yeah, I mean, I don't actually know what the native behavior would be, but you might need to prevent this, to do the upload when the user drops the file on the form uploader and then start it then, and then don't allow the form submission until it's done. You could grab the form submission as it goes through and overtake it. Yeah, I think you'd have to explore it. I'm not 100% sure what the default behavior is there. So I'm going to do another one of these because that was very like fulfilling to actually see that works. If we go here, sunday.jpg, update the video. And if we look at all the stuff that's happening here, so this is all the rendering of the stuff, rendering all the partials. So here is our insert into ActiveStorage attachments, insert into the blob. That's all of the, let me just bump the font size up. That's all of the good stuff happening around the file. That's our paper trail stuff happening. Uploaded file to key. And that's like all the generated keys and everything. There's some sort of delayed job handling there. What is that doing? ActiveStorage analyze job. So something will happen around that. I'm not quite sure what analyze will do. Maybe it updates the blob with stuff it can't get on the upload, because I remember there being stuff that wasn't available during upload and we actually have to have the file. But what you'll see here now is when we come to render that page, we're actually doing a get for the file and it's being redirected to. So that's an example of that redirect happening, where the path you're getting is always consistent, but actually it might point somewhere. So you might move from S3 to Google Cloud, and the actual location of the redirect doesn't work. Yeah, pretty cool. I'd say like it's so we've got we've got some very horrific UI, but it does kind of get the point across. So for anyone who can't see the chat, Haven't done anything with the TurboStream stuff, but seeing how easy it is with ActiveStorage is super cool. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, so this is Turbo Frames, and then on the actual channel view, so this is the control panel one where you would administrate it, and then on here we have, I think it's 13. Yeah, so here we have the actual Turbo Stream. So that's Turbo Frames, which is powering that behavior. And it knows which part of the partial to grab by using the Turbo Frame and the DOM ID of that individual video. And Turbo Streams is listening for changes in behavior. So what this will do is, this is going to look really messy, but if I want to subscribe to this channel, I can click subscribe. And I actually, these two changes here are made, they're made obviously via JavaScript, but nothing that I wrote. They're only made because the response that we get back knows to look for those turbo streams and is listening for them. So last couple of streams, if you're interested, but obviously, you know, the documentation was pretty good. The Turbo Frames documentation we found on the streams we did around that was much more straightforward. The Turbo Stream stuff, I hadn't worked with Action Cable before, and I really found it useful we actually built an Action Cable behavior first and then went to look at Turbo Streams and the frames around that. I found looking at Action Cable really helpful first, if that's useful. Cool. That's going to wrap us up. So we've actually got this showing. I think the next thing that I would want to do is get this working with a CDN. I'm going to try and have a dig around into that this week. I don't know if I'll get too much time. However, like I mentioned last week, I do have some time off work, so I might try and get another couple of, or at least one Homework Edition stream up this week. From looking at some of the stuff on the channel, the work around Sketch, Figma, and Tailwind was super interesting to people, and not having a user interface is now really, really annoying because everything, it's hard to follow what the hell is happening on these in the streams. So I think if I do get any time this week, it might be trying to actually design the user interface in Sketch rather than doing any Rails stuff, so it might just be Tailwind orientated. But people do seem interested in that. I cannot click with Tailwind yet. It's just not there. It's not clicking for me. So I'd be interested to spend an hour or two trying to really find out where my mental model is blocking on that. And so that's going to be interesting. And that is going to wrap us up. So let's just wrap things up. So what did we cover today? We took a look at ActiveStorage, and more specifically getting it set up and how we can, what that CDN story is around it, the fact that it kind of came within Rails. We didn't need to install any gems or anything like that. Really easy to set up. Just one migration, and then we kind of plug and play from that point on. More detail needed around it if we're going to look at some sort of CDN solution. And again, that would depend on what you needed it for. And then we got it working in the user interface, got it working on the console, and got it working alongside Turbo Frames, which is all really useful. And that is us for this week. I have to go because it's Mother's Day, and I've got to go and join a family Zoom, as I'm sure many of you are doing this year. And have a great week, everyone. Like I said, we'll try and do a Homework Edition during the week, but if not, I will see you next Sunday, 10:30 a.m. And have a lovely time. Goodbye.